Hi, everybody. It's Laura Eisenhower. I'm joined with my friend, 𝗏𝘆𝗲𝗏𝗏. And man, we are doing some really awesome things together. One of those things is this incredible event coming up November 1st, which you'll see the details of in the description. But we are distributing an EMF harmonized product, and it's called EMF Harmonized. If you saw one of my interviews before, I was selling an EMF product that is very much out of people's price range. So this is much more affordable. And we're going to talk about that and just everything about this product. But first, I just want to hand it over to you, Lance, to tell us a little bit more about yourself and your background.
Awesome. Thank you, Laura. I'm 𝗏𝘆𝗲𝗏𝗏, and I'm the owner of EMF Harmonized. A little bit about my background is that I went to the University of Iowa and I studied health science with a specific focus on health coaching. And nutrition, wellness, health, that's really been my big interest for the past 10 or 12 years. And I just really love learning a lot of information in this whole area and sharing that information with people, because that's, really what it comes down to, is taking care of ourselves first and foremost and making ourselves as healthy as we can, but then also sharing that knowledge and information to help others.
Brilliant. That's awesome. And okay, so let's go into this product. What are the latest developments in the EMFs and 5G space?
Yeah, okay. So there's a few big things. I mean, there's a lot happening overall, but I'll just touch on a few of the big things. First is there's this group called Environmental Health Trust, and it's led by Dr. 𝗟𝘂𝗶𝗶𝗄𝗏 Davis. She's a medical doctor and a PhD scientist. And she and her group are basically suing the FCC over the regulation of wireless radiation. So basically what the FCC is operating on is science that's 24 years old in relation to EMF radiation, specifically coming off of cell phones. So, the EMF radiation is such a huge issue, and that, with 2G, 3G, 4G, now 5G, that radiation is only increasing. And the FCC is still operating on data from 24 years ago. So that's pretty huge and new. We'll see what comes from that. But hopefully we can get some better quality standards put in place and actual scientific information to help people and to help protect people. Another thing is DARPA. I'm sure that you know about them, Laura. They're studying their pilots or various fighter pilots. They've been noticing a lot of crashes and cognitive decline and just overall lack of cognitive function in fighter pilots. And what they're studying specifically is EMF radiation in the cockpit, and specifically in those helmets. So they found that the magnetic fields within those helmets are 10 times the strength of the magnetic fields coming off of the Earth. So, we're electrical beings, so especially our brain, and, those strong magnetic fields that are just enclosed in a helmet really it can put a stop to a lot of people's cognitive functions and really mess with the circuitry in the brain. So they're studying that and trying to see ways that they can improve that. Hopefully they actually do make improvements. There's a lot of aspects to DARPA that, we could go into deeper, but, the other thing is there was a study recently published that talks about, they compared people born in the 1990s to people born about 4, 5, 6 decades ago. And they found that a person born in the 1990s is 2 times more likely to get colon cancer and 4 times more likely to get rectal cancer by the time they hit age 24. So people getting cancer at the age of 24, as you know, is it's becoming increasingly more prevalent, unfortunately. But the way our natural biology and physiology works is that should not be happening at all. And so the biggest point to take from that is, where are people putting their cell phones mostly? In their front pocket or back pocket? And the colon and the rectal areas, it's right there. So they're studying it specifically for EMF radiation, and those are basically the conclusions that they're finding.
Yeah, and we need all the protection we can possibly get because of the weaponization of just our electronics, and there's just so much constantly bombarding us. It's insane. So what got you interested in EMFs and to start a company around EMFs?
So again, health and wellness was my field and my passion. And I really started learning a lot about grounding and earthing and how beneficial that is. And so I've been doing that for about the past 10 years. And then recently I was able to get in contact with a scientist who, he was actually one of the few co-founders of Texas Instruments. And that's a major tech company here in the US. And he has patents in 2G and 3G technologies. He led a team of over 100 scientists at Texas Instruments, and basically just formed a partnership with him to sell the technology that he's created, which is very, very interesting stuff.
So a lot of people sometimes question how well these products actually work. And what can you tell us about this technology, and how do we know if they actually work? What sort of tests or what sort of, evidence or proof is there?
So yeah, so the first point is, going back again, the scientist that we have, he's worked in this field, he's an expert in this field, and he's going to create something that works. Now, again, yes, we need the testing to prove that. So some of the things that we've done is, so what this is doing is it filters out the RF waves, which are called the radio frequency waves. And we've been able to prove that in a couple different ways. The first is we took red blood cells, human red blood cells, and just looked at it baseline and saw how they're grouped normally in a healthy way, which means they're separated, they're carrying oxygen, they're doing things that they should be doing in a healthy state. And then we put a phone up next to those red blood cells, okay? And within a few seconds, those red blood cells start clumping together, and that's called roping. And what that does is it deprives the flow of oxygen. So people sometimes who are electrosensitive, they feel the effects of not being able to breathe well, or maybe asthma, lightheadedness, fatigue, cloudiness. All of that stuff is related to poor oxygen flow. And then what we did is we took our cell phone protection disc and we put it right on the phone and put it back up next to those red blood cells. And again, within a few seconds, they started decoupling. So oxygen started flowing again. That was one test. Another one that we've done is we're measuring ATP content. So ATP, it's like literally the free energy current within the mitochondria, within the cell. So we had tested, we took a very sensitive device called the Lumitester PD30, and this tests something called relative light units, which converts to ATP. So we took another baseline test and we found that the ATP content within these cells were a little over 600. And then we put our cell phone protection disc or in this water as well. And it basically 12x'd the amount of ATP that was present. And so what this did is it basically was facilitating the flow of life, because ATP is life. When electromagnetic fields interact with ATP, it can actually shut off the flow of the protons. And so the ATP content becomes less. So less ATP, less life. What our technology is doing is it's allowing and facilitating the flow of life. And that's why, people actually feel the benefits. Not everyone's going to feel it because not everyone's electrosensitive, but, people who are, we have a lot of good feedback from people that say they can actually feel noticeable benefits to it. And it's what we've studied as well is the field coming off of the device can go up to about 10 to 12 feet away from your phone or your computer or your tablet, your iPad, things like that. So it's protecting you for about 10 to 12 feet, which is pretty incredible.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got one on my phone.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah, I feel a difference. I mean, oh man, totally. It's the greatest form of protection. It's such a huge part of what is making it so difficult for people to think clearly. And with the madness, what's going on, of all that's going on in the world, we have to be able to really stay connected to our intuition and, you know, be sure that we can navigate from a place of clarity, because all these interferences, yeah, really, really do get in the way. So how do EMFs actually damage our DNA, and what are the implications of this in the long term?
Okay, well, you definitely know about this, Laura. You're an expert on DNA and like the activation of the higher strands of DNA. Um, so I'll answer that, but I also want to ask you too, because I know you know a lot about this stuff. So um, the most interesting aspect that I've found, or one of the most in relation to this, is there was a doctor named Dr. Martin Blank, and he was a PhD of 2 different sciences, and he published a study stating that, and this was very controversial at the time, that the DNA acts as a fractal hologram, excuse me, a fractal antenna for electromagnetic fields. So this is both positive, like healing electromagnetic fields that are coming off the earth, but then also negative ones like coming off the phones, computers, etc. So basically what it's doing is our DNA is literally picking up those wireless signals, and then it's signaling to create some sort of biological or physiological effects within the body. So that's like the base mechanism for how EMFs interact with us. And he led this group called the International EMF Scientists Appeal. And right now, there's 253 scientists on this appeal from 44 countries around the world. To even get on this board, you have to have had published a paper on EMFs in relation to harmful biological effects. And they're all saying the same thing. It damages the DNA, and it really impacts us in negative ways. You know, there's a whole science to actually how that's working, but the basis is that we know the EMFs are damaging the DNA. What other things do you know about it?
Right. Are you asking me?
Yeah, in relation to DNA and, you know, electromagnetic fields in general, and like the activation of those higher strands, like the so-called 99% junk DNA,
Yeah.
which we know isn't true.
Yeah, it just keeps our fire codes scrambled. It keeps the junk DNA alive. It really just disables us from thinking clearly. It can create a lot of brain fog, and you know, I mean, and we pass it down generation to generation to the point where, you know, we lose our soul matrix in a lot of ways, and we can get assimilated into AI very easily when that damage is occurring, because in this time we're meant to upgrade, we're meant to, you know, evolve and move to the next level. And if we keep having our growth stunted, you know, the curiosity begins to die away, and it's just like, you know, a person can't even remember, and they get more and more linked into, you know, these harmful waves. And the junk DNA has a lot to do with the integration of polarity. And if those things are scrambled and we can't integrate polarity, it's also a part of the divide and conquer agendas and the social engineering that we're dealing with. So, I mean, it compounds everything. And a lot of people feel that disconnect from source, so they don't feel God's source anymore. And how that relates to just vaccinations and just the New World Order stuff. I mean, we have to have in our tool shed all the things to counteract, you know, this level of weaponry. And when we can find the clarity, we can begin to get the downloads, then we move into the override frequency, and we can begin to, you know, advance our human vessel. But it's going to be very, very difficult without this kind of support, because there's such an amplification of these harmful EMFs. So, yeah. And how it mutates, yeah, just, you know, I mean, cancer. And then when we see just the youth that are addicted to their electronics, and the chronic diseases are at an all-time high with children, it's that as well. So
so it's also a proven fact that EMF radiation penetrates and absorbs into the brains of young children at far greater levels than they do adults. We as adults definitely still are impacted in negative ways, but children are even more so. So like, you said all these kids are on all these devices. If you have kids or someone with kids, like, you really want to look into how to protect yourself, because it is absolutely affecting them. Another thing to add to this is, so with the frequencies, like, we're using programmed holograms. So what we're doing is we're taking beneficial frequencies and we are imprinting them using something called scalar waves, which is what Tesla had discovered. And those holograms are holding this frequency, these are various frequencies. And when it's put on the phone, for example, or put on your iPad, the micro amounts of heat that are coming off of that phone actually activate that hologram to then basically imprint the positive frequencies. So something that we'd like to clarify is that these things are not blocking EMFs, because if it was actually blocking EMFs, your device would not work. Like, you wouldn't be able to take a call, you wouldn't be able to be on the internet, because there'd be no signal coming through. So what our technology is doing is it's actually signaling to the body. First, it's filtering out the RF waves, the radio frequency waves, and that's like the harmful spectrum of the EMFs. But second, it's also basically bombarding the body with positive, helpful frequencies. So it helps the body to not react in a stressful, negative physiological way when we're in the presence of EMFs. We also sell some body relief discs, which people, you can place them on their body, and it's meant to support a healthy inflammatory response. And we have incredible feedback from people on that, ranging from a lot of different things, and people actually feel it, because again, it's just literally frequencies that are programmed into these holograms that are then interacting with our DNA to then stimulate positive physiological responses within the body. The technology we use was actually the first technology in the world to use programmed holograms to elicit a biological response in the body. So it's very interesting stuff. Again, the scientist that we have is brilliant, and his heart is definitely in the right place and wanting to help people.
Oh, that's so huge. And you know what I really, really love is the fact that you donate a portion of your profits to those who are survivors of rape, sexual abuse, and human trafficking. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so a couple of big things that I'm passionate about, definitely the EMFs, health and wellness, but also ending the human trafficking issue, and ending rape and sexual abuse and things like that, and helping people who have gone through those kinds of experiences. So right now, we're donating a portion of our profits to a crisis center that we have vetted. We know that they're actually helping people, and part of the money is going to that. Where it's actually going to ultimately end up going is we're going to use those allocated funds and buy flower essences and essential oils and donate them directly to either an organization or directly to people who have had those kinds of terrible experiences, so that they can get the soul level healing that they need. Because the current standard of care, it's good in some ways and necessary in some ways, but really people who've had those kinds of experiences and trauma in general need soul level healing, and flower essences and essential oils are, I consider, nutrients for the soul, and they really help you process and heal trauma on deep, deep levels that Western medicine can't touch right now.
Oh, for sure. This is the time. I mean, it's always been the time. When has there not been a time to embrace the true medicines of the earth? But this is the most critical time to embrace it and just love yourself enough to give yourself, this precious, gift, because our health is everything, and we know that. So where can people find your website and learn more about you?
Okay, so we'll have Laura's link in the description. So if you want to look at the website, please use Laura's link. She'll get credit for any sales that come through her link. We definitely want to make that happen. And if you want to learn more about me, I'm personally on Facebook under Lance Shuttler. And we also have a Facebook page for EMF Harmonize. We're on Instagram as well. Yeah, and if you have any questions, contact me directly or the website, and we'll get back to you. Yeah, it's good that we did this, Laura. I appreciate it. You know, we're really helping people with this stuff and making a very positive impact in the world.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for all that you do. And I'm so thrilled to be a part of it and just be a resource to provide this to people. So thank you so much for joining us, Lance. Take care, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.